Homosexual characters in cartoons are becoming increasingly common, with lesbian relationships being considerably more featured at this point in time. For a while now, fans have been speculating that Amity and Luz are developing feelings for one another, and that their relationship may go somewhere on the show. In the beginning, Amity appeared to be just a typical bully, but over the course of the first half of Season 1, we got to see her softer side, with their conversation in front of the library seeming to flip their relationship from tense to friendly. Since then, the fact that Amity has feelings for Luz has become anything but subtle. In The First Day, we can see Amity questioning what Luz going to school means to her, and in Understanding Willow, it's basically just a 20-minute confirmation that Amity has feelings for Luz as she blushes at just about everything she says or does. The final cherry on top was the previews for the upcoming episode, Enchanting Grom Fright, which shows Hexside's version of a prom, with Luz and Amity seen together quite a bit and dressed in pretty, alternative outfits. One Twitter user sent the screenshot to Owl House creator Dana Terrace and stated, "There is no heterosexual explanation for this," to which Dana Terrace responded, "There really isn't." This seems to confirm that there is definitely something going on between those two, but I think it may not be exactly what we suspect. An interesting thing I've noticed is that we have no indication that Luz returns those feelings. In fact, most of what we have seen from her indicates that she is straight so far. Back in episode 2, which is before Wizards, we see that Luz is prone to crushes on muscular pretty boys. Some fans have taken this to mean that Luz is actually bisexual, because in Lost in Language, we see her blushing when Amity's older sister calls her cute. While this could be an indication that she also has feelings for women, or maybe questioning her feelings, it's also entirely possible that being called a cutie just made her embarrassed. Blushing doesn't always mean you like the person. The show takes some inspiration from anime, of course, which constantly shows people blushing when complimented, particularly on their looks, by people who the characters don't have any feelings for. It just seems like Luz, being anxious and awkward as she is, wasn't sure how to respond to being called a cutie out of the blue like that. Because of this, I think that the show might be doing something a bit more nuanced than we're used to seeing with homosexual relationships in cartoons. Generally, we are presented with seemingly perfect couples, two people of the same gender who are either already happy together or meet each other and are clearly a perfect match by the time their feelings develop. While we've seen some nuance, such as in Pearl's relationship with Rose Quartz in Steven Universe, or the more drawn-out journey to Princess Bubblegum and Marceline, the general only other outcome to this perfect relationship is the tragic death of one of the characters, such as we've seen in Voltron. In this case, I think we might see Amity eventually confess her feelings to Luz, and Luz rejecting Amity, though not in a mean-spirited way. First and foremost, it is clear that Luz ends up going to the Grom with Amity, but that doesn't mean Luz intended it to be romantic from the get-go. Friends going to dances together is extremely common. With girls in particular, it's normal to go as each other's dates without it being taken seriously. These shots from the trailer seem to be at the end of the Grom, after all the drama has subsided, and the two don't look particularly romantic. But instead, they look a bit uneasy, with even Amity's smile seeming to be one of resignation as opposed to legitimate joy, with the two comforting each other in some way. My interpretation here is that Luz has discovered Amity's feelings and doesn't want to hurt her, but doesn't feel the same way. But now you may be asking, how does she find out? Well, the Grom isn't just a dance. We can see in other shots that Luz is using a mace with one of her glyphs to fight something, and based on the design on the floor, Luz's mother shows up as well. In the Owl House mobile game, we get to learn a lot about the magical items that will be featured in the show. One such item is the Grom's tiara, which is described as basically creating illusions that haunt the wearer. While Luz's greatest fear now is her mom finding out that she's at the Boiling Isles and presumably forcing her to return home afterwards, thus why she seems to appear in this episode, we've seen that Amity's feelings for Luz are more confusing to her than anything. I have a feeling that Luz is going to think of this Grom as a human prom and be pranked by the other mean witches into thinking she should be vying for the tiara like the prom queen title from a human school. Amity would try to save Luz, but in doing so would end up with the tiara herself and ultimately have her feelings revealed to Luz. From there, I think Luz would be very understanding. She already feels that Amity is important to her, but won't feel the same way, won't feel romantic about her, I mean. Of course, I could also be reading this backwards. Luz could be seeing that Amity has feelings for her, and upon questioning them, Amity admits that while she is confused, she doesn't really know how she feels about Luz, and for the time being, would be very happy to just be friends, which explains why Amity seems to be more comforting Luz in this scenario than the other way around, but it is hard to say. Currently, it is unknown how the Boiling Isles feels about homosexual relationships. They could be very regressive. After all, the whole point of this show is to show this very old-fashioned and oppressive system that doesn't let people do what they want through the Emperor, so I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't allowed. However, they may not want to address the issue of actual homophobia in a children's show, so maybe addressing it through the fact that Luz is human. For instance, Amity may be fine dating other women as long as they're witches. Her parents may not care, society may not care, but because Luz is human, they may put their foot down on that, and that would be a perfect metaphor for exploring homophobia in a children's show, similar to how they used fusion in relationships on Steven Universe. Regardless of what happens here, I don't think this is how their story ends, and it would not surprise me if the two continued to deepen their relationship romantically over the course of the show. But what do you guys think? Leave a comment telling me what you think will happen at Grom, and I'll see you next time.